And Ms. Mullenbeck, we are ready.
One of these days. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Board of Education of Glenbrook High School District 225. We'll begin with a roll call, please, Ms. Smith.
Mr. Downing,
Here. You can clap if you want.
Mr. Glowacki.
Present.
Okay, Mrs. Hope,
Here.
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Here.
Mr. O'Hara, Mr. Schein,
Present.
Dr. Steinberg,
Here.
6 members present.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. If I could have a motion, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That will take us then to item 3 on our agenda, which are the board and superintendent reports. Before we move on to Dr. Johns, I have a sad statement to make. Tonight, we are saddened to share that the Glenbrook community has lost 2 of its own in recent days. Mrs. Mary Kay Lutz, a longtime registered nurse at Glenbrook North, and Joshua Terrell, a rising junior at Glenbrook South. Since 2015, Mary Kay has served our students and staff with unwavering kindness, compassion, and dedication. She was known not only for her clinical expertise, but for her warm smile, gentle spirit, and deep care for every individual she encountered. Joshua was a dedicated student athlete who ran cross-country and track, and he was actively involved in Project Lead the Way and the science and engineering learning community. He will be remembered for his bright spirit, curiosity, and the meaningful connections he formed with peers and staff. We ask that you join us in a moment of silence to honor Mary Kay and Joshua's lives and the lasting impact they made within our school community. Dr. Johns?
Thank you, Ms. Mullenbeck. I have 2 items for the superintendent report before I hand things over to the principals. The first is a notice that we received from Northbrook Township. They're opening up their new food pantry space, and that's part of their 175 years of service that the township has had to our community. Just understanding townships when one moves to Illinois is fascinating. It's a real story of history for us. And townships have always served residents. And in our particular case, we have an outstanding township office, and they're doing a great job of supporting our students, particularly when it comes to those who are needy, and their food resources are particularly important. And our students at both schools work very hard with their food drives to help to support these pantries. On June 17th, that's Tuesday, June 17th, from 4 to 6, they're going to have the ribbon cutting ceremony. I think that part will actually start at 4:15. And I encourage anyone who can go to be there. I know that several of the administrative team will be there, partly because of the level of partnership that we have with the township. We want to make sure that everyone is aware that that is a really important and key relationship that we have in our district. So if any municipal leader, particularly our board members, are able to attend, it would be a wonderful thing to show our support for such a great organization. The second thing I want to acknowledge, and you can see it, the copy of the letter in the packet, is that we received from Representative Jennifer Gong-Gershowitz's office, she's the representative for the 17th District, which is largely Glenview, a really exciting bit of news. She's been able to secure for Glenbrook South a $500,000 project grant that'll be administered through the DCEO. And we're already looking at ways that we can use this. We have a number of facility needs at South that we would like to address, but we're very excited for this allocation that came through the budget. We certainly have needs for it and are very grateful to Representative Gong-Gershowitz, who's been really a passionate and loyal supporter of our schools. Since certainly as long as I've known her. I believe she had 2 children go through our schools, and we certainly appreciate her support and efforts on behalf of our schools. So with that, I'll turn it over to the principals. I'm going to guess that we're going to start with GBN.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, to start off, we had a beautiful graduation ceremony on Sunday, June 1st. Our graduates gave thoughtful speeches, presented a generous class gift, and performed the national anthem in the GBN alma mater. Thank you to Ms. Mullenbeck and Mr. Glowacki for attending to bestow our graduates with their diplomas. GBN celebrates our 2025 winners of the NCTE, the National Council of Teachers of English Achievement Awards in Writing. This is a national writing contest for sophomores and juniors established in 1957 to recognize some of the best student writers in the nation. And locally, our contest was coordinated by our ARC, our Academic Resource Center. And this year's prompt was about the healing properties of literature. NCTE judges awarded the highest rating of first class to Ashley Ahn, Emily, and Maribel Lee. And only 18 students in the state of Illinois received this designation. And in addition to these three, 7 additional students from GBN were recognized with honorable mention awards. Special thanks to our ARC coordinator, Christopher DeKuyper, for coordinating the students for this competition. Our year wrapped up with our annual concert in the courtyard featuring our choirs, bands, and jazz bands in a Ravinia style concert. We couldn't have had better weather for this performance, and special thanks to our directors, Chad Davidson, Kelsey Nichols, Dan Briggs, and Alex Baxmeyer, and all of the students for their wonderful performances. Our GBN bass fishing team sent 3 students, Charlie Patzik, Alex Thiemann, and Jacob Zijor, to compete in the state tournament on Lake Shelbyville this past weekend, marking the team's first trip downstate. The team placed 32 out of 60 teams, with a highlight being Alex's impressive 5-pound, 3-ounce bass. Thanks to our Bass Fishing Club sponsor, Daniel Wolf, who's one of our instructional assistants, for his leadership, as well as our security team member, Jim DeGroot, who assisted in chaperoning our students, as he is an avid fisherman himself. And in activities, the Glenbrook North chapter of Relay for Life held a very successful event last week that raised approximately $43,000 that will go directly to the American Cancer Society for their work with cancer research. It also helped that they too had beautiful weather for their evening events. Special thanks to Relay for Life sponsor David Dolnick for his sponsorship of the club. In athletics, more than 100 students in grades 6 through 12 were excited to bear down with Chicago Bears quarterback Tyson Bagent at the offensive skills camp that we held here, including current and feeder program football and flag football players. So it was a great event. And GBN baseball defeated Glenbrook South to secure the regional championship and fought hard at the sectional semifinal against New Trier this past Wednesday. Though the game ended with a tough loss for the Spartans, we're incredibly proud of the team's performance this season. Congratulations to our head coach Weiner and the full baseball coaching staff, and especially our players who persisted through many different injuries and had a great season. And our GBN boys track sent 5 students to the state meet, including our 4x100 team of Aiden Fladeland, Mateo Gachalian, and Eli Kahn, and a 200-meter competitor, but the icing on the cake was that our 4x200 relay team of Aiden, Fletcher Geek, and Eli Kahn took first place in state. Their time of 1 minute and 26 seconds and 25 hundredths from the day before was the 11th fastest time in the history of the IHSA. It's the first state championship for GBN boys track and field, and special thanks to track coach Sean Brandt, the full staff, and our full track team for an incredible season. It was quite an exciting time. And finally, I wanted to recognize our GBN retirees who we celebrated last Friday on the Glenbrook Day. We had from our art department, Lee Block and Justin Gerbich. In student services, Joyce Bozaki-Ray and Debbie Maskin. In athletics, John Catalano. In PE, health and driver's ed, Mike English and Jess Roby. In science, Kathy Gutierrez. In CTE, Mary Kosterog. In social studies, Matt Miller. Our associate principal for teaching and learning, Ed Solis. In world language, John Sorkin. And our instructional assistants, Amy Tico, Indra Williams, and Larry Yokas, our auditorium manager, Joel Monahan, and our building and ground staff, Tony Katz, Rafael Lopez, and Andy Nardini. We had a great time celebrating their years of service and hearing their thoughtful words shared on the Glenbrook Day.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. We actually had an extraordinary end of year at Glenbrook South. Last Friday was our end of year celebration where we have a time to bring our staff together for one more moment to celebrate all of the achievements of the year of our students and our staff and spend time in community celebrating our retirees. If you haven't had the chance to attend, always more than welcome. We always kick off with a drum line at 8:30, which is a special moment to watch. This year, and I'll share it in a moment, we had a really moving and exceptional moment with our end of year video, and I'll share that with the Board of Ed. It's kind of a synopsis of all of our student and staff achievements in one video, some personal, some professional, but it's really wonderful to see everything that's transpired in this year. It's a real feel-good moment. More importantly, what we celebrated was an exceptional group of retirees that have a combined 282 years of service to Glenbrook South. So we had Mr. John Blix from CTE, Melissa Brown Harris, Safety and Security, Danita Fitch, the Instructional Supervisor of World Languages, Ken Flaws from Safety and Security, Daniel Hicks and David Kane both from Social Studies, Kimberly Larson from Student Services, Charles Murdoff from Technology, Jen Pearson joined us, the District Director of Special Education, Lisa Sly from District Office in Educational Services, Frank Stankiewicz from Safety and Security, Nancy Stickles from Special Education, and the infamous Matt Whipple. So it was really a wonderful day. This photograph was taken right before our students led them in the drum line. And then we closed also by celebrating Samantha Papa George, Veronica Reyes, Lindy Schmiegel, Anne Marie Harden, and Matt Whipple with the Outstanding Service Awards. It was truly a great morning and a great way to end the year. And then we all had breakfast together. It was a good time. We too enjoyed a really wonderful graduation at the Rosemont Theater. We had 740 graduates in our class of 2025. I would like to thank Mr. Shine, Ms. Mullenbeck, and Mr. Downey for distributing all of those diplomas to our kiddos. Thank you so much. It was a beautiful evening, and we received a lot of positive feedback from families, and Clara did a great job with her speech as photographed there. Woo, it was a busy morning at Glenbrook South. We kicked off summer school already, we're going. Yeah. So, it's wonderful to have all of the students across all of our campuses come to one building. So GBN and GBOC were also present at Glenbrook South this morning. We have 837 District 225 students that are enrolled in 36 sessions for this semester of summer school. The students who are attending are taking a variety of coursework through a variety of departments. They'll do one semester during the month of June, another semester during the month of July. So it's always a little bumpy getting them all into their classes and new classrooms and new buildings and staff from outside the district. So I'd like to give a shout out to Ms. Canchola and Dr. Kim. They are the associate principals at Glenbrook South that are serving as summer school principals. But within just a few minutes, everyone was settled and learning for the day. So it was a great morning. We also simultaneously had our athletic summer camps that kicked off today. They'll be running all summer long with current athletes, incoming athletes, and some future Titans as well. In athletics, this is a photograph of the boys tennis team. They finished 5th in the IHSA state tournament this past weekend. Bryce Adan and David Kaminsky finished 4th in the state in doubles. Gavin Johnson and Shahan Hajari finished in the top 24 doubles teams in the state. And Alex Pop finished 2-2 in the state tournament. So super proud of our Titans. And that's all for Glenbrook South.
Thank you. Do any board members have any reports to share? Okay, in that case, we will move on to item 4 on our agenda, which is recognition of community visitors, although I understand that we do not have any community visitors tonight. Not even civic students. Oh, well.
Oh.
No civics in summer school, apparently. So that moves us on then to our consent agenda. Dr. Johns, are there any changes to the consent agenda?
No changes to the consent agenda.
Any items that anyone would like to open for discussion? In that case, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So move. Second.
Mr. Downing,
Yes.
Mr. Glowacki.
Yes.
Ms. Hope,
Yes.
Mr. Schein,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg,
Yes.
Ms. Mullenbeck.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That takes us then to item 6 on our agenda, which is the discussion/action agenda. And first up, we have item 6.1, an update from Dr. Johns on our withdrawal from the True North Educational Cooperative 804.
Thank you. Before I get started, if someone has the remote for me. Okay, I want to give a quick update on where we stand with our petition to withdraw from True North. Things are going as expected, however, not the smoothest way possible. We sent out our petitions to withdraw on April 29th and gave the other 17 districts until June 1st to give us an outcome in terms of their board's vote on whether or not to permit our petition. Just as a reminder, True North's Articles of Agreement require unanimous consent for a district to consensually withdraw from their organization. We had 4 districts vote against us, which is the same as what happened with District 34. That was anticipated. So now we are beginning the process to appeal that vote to North Cook Intermediate Service Center, NCISC. Part of that process is the submission of a comprehensive plan. That is a part of this process. The comprehensive plan would show to the appeal board or council with North Cook that we have the capacity to meet all the educational needs of our students. Just want to point out in terms of the reasons for districts, for the 4 districts withdrawing, 2 did not say in their board packets, but the other 2 both talked about increased costs. I'd just like to point out under Illinois state law, the only reason that a district would be rejected for withdrawal from a cooperative is the inability to meet the educational needs of all of its special education students. So I feel good moving forward that we meet the criteria in order to withdraw. Just a quick update indicating the approval, disapproval, and no response. You'll see the 4 that disapprove. In terms of no responses, actually, I'm expecting Bannockburn to give me an update on their vote. They have fewer board meetings than we do, so they didn't have a meeting in May. It's 7 board meetings a year, must be great. And then Lake Forest has chosen not to vote. I did check with their superintendent. He understands that as we stipulated, a non-vote would be a yes vote, and he understood that and did not have an issue. So our next steps, we've hired a consultant, Mary Garrity, to assist us in the comprehensive plan that I mentioned briefly before. She wrote the comprehensive plan for District 34, so she's well aware of the requirements of that particular plan. The statute that we're following is listed, and I expect for this plan to be complete by the end of summer, hopefully maybe even a little before. We're in a fortunate position that current Director of Special Ed for 225, Dr. Pearson, is reviewing it. And then our new incoming Director of Special Ed, Dr. Coombe, is also reviewing it. So along with Dr. Laura Cummings, we have a lot of brain power taking a look at our comprehensive plan. So far, I've seen a fairly substantial draft of it, and it's looking really good. It's actually inspirational in how much work we do in special education. I think the takeaway is that we do a lot. So our future step, I reached out to the superintendent of North Cook ISC to let her know that we are appealing the decision. She will appoint a 3-member hearing panel. They have to have some educational expertise. They have to be impartial, and they cannot be within our district. This panel will determine if we can independently serve the needs of the students, as we said before, and if approved, our withdrawal will be effective July 1 of 2026, as we indicated we desired. However, it doesn't stop there. Despite not being articulated in the state statute, there's a whole nother level of analysis that comes into play. Even if we're approved by North Cook ISC, we then have to submit our plan to the state. The state develops a withdrawal team that does an initial review of our comprehensive plan, and then we have to request time with the advisory council that only meets 4 times a year. There'll be a subcommittee that will look at it and then a final vote. So we have a tricky road ahead in terms of timing, but we're proceeding ahead. One thing to point out is that the statute, House Bill 2390, that was passed both houses and is on the governor's desk, that was drafted by our local representative, Tracy Katz-Mall, with Dr. Gravel's assistance, would forego this particular step. So a really good move and a piece of legislation. I think that's very, very helpful. Just a couple contextual updates in terms of True North. Dr. Schneider, who's the superintendent of True North, has updated families recently on the status of things at True North and our issues of withdrawing. As we may go into more conversation later, although it's very early in these conversations, it appears that between 16 and 18 of the 18-member districts are contemplating withdrawal or dissolution. But he believed in a letter he sent to the families that there would be no service changes for the next school year, and is anticipating decisions from the other 16 districts at this point by the end of 2025. So a lot to learn yet about what's happening with True North. This time I'm not requesting any action. We'll continue to keep the board and community informed as we proceed with the withdrawal process.
If I can add something, thank you. Because there's a meeting next week, Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So aside from everything that we're doing as a district, we are part of the board. So I'm representing the board, but I would like to represent the board and not just simply come up with whatever question comes up there. So from my point of view, there are two parallel processes here. There's a process of us trying to exit the consortium, but at the same time, the consortium is trying to work, or at least the professional side of the consortium is trying to work on hiring consultants to draw a new plan. And I don't know with what expectation, I'm just representing how it is. So as representative of a district, I'm assuming on Wednesday, we are going to be representative of districts that are trying to leave. But my expectation is that a large majority are going to be representative of districts that, although they are trying to leave, they're going to try to collaborate on the process to see if there's a better way of running this thing. I think we need to be clear on what we want to do, because this is not about leaving the consortium or not, but this is about how we're going to come out. We all agree at the time that we're going to leave the consortium, and we don't mind if, because of us, this triggered a whole other thing. But there's a different point in terms of, are we sending a representative that basically sits there and twiddles his fingers? Are we sending a representative that says, because we are not going to be part of this, we're going to get up and leave, which is not what 34 is doing, because 34 is participating and adding ideas, although they are on their way out? Or are we going to be a district that are going to support them in conversations on how things could be better, regardless of us being committed to leaving? Those could be two different things. We can be like, this is why this didn't work for us and we are leaving. But because we are part of the same community, we don't mind sharing ideas that could do this thing better. But I don't want to do it as Marcelo Steinberg. I'm representing everybody in the room. So I'd appreciate any guidance or comments.
So to expand on Dr. Steinberg's point, we know that there was late after the agenda was made for the board packet, that a number of other districts met. They have a different law firm that they use than we do, and they are looking to bring forward for Wednesday night a couple agenda items. I don't know where that stands. I've not been given an update.
They've been updating the agenda almost daily the last couple of months.
So, so there's a request to, as he said, as Dr. Steinberg said, bring in outside assistance in understanding and working the cooperative through a dissolution process and some other pieces. So a lot's going to happen Wednesday night. My guess is that we all owe you
They
for
already
what will be a
told
late
us.
meting.
They already told us, meeting normally lasts an hour and a half, told us to be prepared for 2 hours and a half or more.
Yeah.
It's really exciting. Strike that from the.
So, and one thing to point out is that we are still members, we're still paying, we will be paying through at least July 1, 2026, depending on what happens with the ISBE, kind of hinting, returning to the point about the timing is that we could really strike some issues with timing, and getting out of July 1, 2026 might be difficult for us if we're unable to hit the meeting structure that the advisory council has for the ISBE. That could be tough for us. So while we're still paying, we should still have a voice, still participate, and it's possible that through this whole process, we might see something we like. And we should stay open and open-minded to that.
I just don't want to don't want for us to give the idea of you're on your own, because in fact, if they dissolve the consortium, we benefit because this whole process is over. So we're committed to the process of leaving, but at the same time, we're not pushing them off the cliff, so that process becomes easier for us.
And this is just things going on in my own head, but we could see coming out of this a different consortium model where the districts, maybe more locally, organized to provide services. And being certainly the largest member of True North, we might be in a position to help other districts in a way that's also mutually beneficial for us as well. So we want to stay in that game, both to help, but also because of our own interests are still at play in the organization. So.
I thought, RJ.
So last week, Dr. Johns and I had the opportunity to meet with representatives from the True North leadership team. So these are administrators that were asking for thoughts, ideas, things that could make the cooperative better in the long term. And when I had the opportunity to testify in Springfield twice with Representative Katz-Moll and Senator Fine, I emphasized an important point that I just want to restate here for our own community. Special education joint agreements or cooperatives serve an essential need throughout the state of Illinois for districts that are unable to provide a continuum of services for students with disabilities. There is a need, whether it be for alternative learning environments. There is a need for specialized professional development for many districts. And there's a need for contracting with agencies for specialized skills, whether it be occupational therapy, speech language, pathology, or any of these things that some school districts may have a need, but not a large enough need to have their own staff. So while Glenbrook is in a different position, we can't say that that's true for all the members of True North. To that end, one of the things that I shared directly with the representatives from True North and Dr. Steinberg, and it would be helpful for you to maybe share this, is I've been fortunate to be in the district as the chief school business official for 9 years. We have demonstrated the ability to manage an environment in fluctuating times that is financially stable, that demonstrates fiduciary responsibility, that puts students at the forefront of all of our decisions, many things which parallel what True North is seeking to do. To that end, whether we are departing because that's what's appropriate for our district, as long as we're here and even after, I am more than happy to be part of the planning process to help them reimagine what True North can be. And I hope they'll take me up on that. Having the CSBO lens and a superintendent lens, I would think would be very helpful. And so I've brought that up. I have offered that on prior occasions and it has not been accepted. So I really would encourage, if instead of going down a path, I would argue, of dissolution, which is on the table, I did confirm it's on the agenda. Step one is making sure that we have everyone together and we all have a plan that we could maybe accept moving forward. To that end, the one last piece of feedback I would give, one of the challenges I think True North occasionally has gotten into, and this is all a matter of public record, is they will often bring in additional consultants to a hefty price tag, or different organizations or different retirees. I would suggest that the best people to analyze what the needs of the districts are representatives directly of the district. Most importantly, the sitting administrators who have those responsibilities to ensure their students are being met. So as the Leadership Council considers options, I would encourage that the first thing would be identifying what specialties, what skills are needed, and then to put out so that everyone can see, these are who we're looking for. Do we have any signups? Do we have any interest? And showing who responds to everyone and identifying, do we have enough people here to answer that? Or do we need to go into added expense? Because just being candid, any expense of the cooperative is an expense of our district and all member districts. And I don't know if it's important to bring in external people when what we really need to do is just have more candid, direct conversations amongst members. So those are just some thoughts I'd add.
Appreciate the suggestion, which I'll bring there.
Mr. Glowacki, did you have anything to add?
I was just gonna say, I think these are two separate issues, so we need to wear the hat regarding our departure. And then separately, what can win True North? We don't want to see this organization struggle unnecessarily, but they were developed for a different time and period. And are they still relevant at this point in time? Is there anything we can learn? Of course, we're happy to share it, but those are separate hats, in my opinion.
Right. I'll take it.
Mr. Downing? No. Ms. Hope? No. Mr. Shine? Just so that I understand, though, this was you're not asking for a recommendation or action from the board. Marcelo,
No.
you'll be attending this meeting, and I think we all have heard that our goal is to assist where we can, but maintain the path that we've chosen. We're going full steam ahead on that, right? So,
I'm taking that.
okay. All right. Sticking on the True North subject, the next item on our agenda is a discussion of the approval of petitions to withdraw from True North.
So this is going to be a very short agenda item. It's mostly a heads up. We have received, this is not the petition, this is the resolution from District 30, one of our feeder districts that is now interested in withdrawing from True North as well. We know of at least one other district that has reached this point as well. And we're going to start receiving over the next couple weeks to months a series of petitions to withdraw just like we have. So I want to let the board know, so if there's questions that you have in mind that we might ask the petitioning districts so that we can smooth this process out for everybody. Conceivably, if we have kind of a frame of reference of what we're looking for in the petitions, or if we want to be consistent with our own request, maybe then we could expedite things and go straight to the consent agenda when we get to that point when we start to receive resolutions. Just, you know, since we asked to leave for these conditions, if those districts are in the same boat, then we would move ahead with moving it to consent agenda. So just also trying to keep the board apprised of things really are truly marching on. It's not lip service.
That actually reminds me of a question that I had on our previous agenda item about True North. Speaking of marching ahead, just want to make sure I understand. With respect to the bill that's waiting for the governor's signature, House Bill 2390, you'd indicated that it would remove the ISBE appeal step, the second appeal step.
Yeah.
Would that retroactively apply then to our current petition? No.
No, we could jump into it, but we're on a faster timeline. So yes, the answer is yes and no. So it would not permit us a timeline to leave July 2026 because it requires 18 months lead time, and we're now past the 18 months.
Okay. That was my question.
Good question, though.
Thank
It's
you.
one of those things that wakes me up in the middle of the night.
Wait.
So I'm glad you asked it.
Now, we're moving faster, so
Yeah.
that's good. Okay.
Do you want to do intergovernmental too?
Do you want to ask people if they have questions?
Any more questions? I'm sorry, we're sticking with True North. We're now talking about coming petitions. We've got one already, another one coming, and from what I understand, we can expect another 14 or so before the end of the year?
Yes, there's different interpretations of, there's different interpretations and timelines that districts are trying to make. So some districts are saying we're not ready to go in 2026, but we're interested in going into 2027. So that so that puts them in a different place over the course of the next 18 months of where they want to be with their initial petition, and I'm sorry, resolution and petition. So. But I do believe we'll see a couple, more than a couple by the end of summer.
Mr. Downing?
Yeah, you're, you're recommending, or not recommending, but you're saying that would be great if we could get the petition and just slot it right in the consent agenda. What would we need to do that?
What's that?
Are
What
you
would we-
saying that you would like to be able to slot any petition straight into the consent agenda? What would we need to do as a board to do that?
So we would receive, the administration would receive the petition that will look substantially like ours. And we would post that in consent. And what is needed to approve one of these plans is to see in either in the petition like we did, or in a separate document that the district is asserting in some degree that it has the ability to meet the educational needs of all of its special education students. So just like districts have voted on us, kind of some sort of document, they attest that they have that capability. If they do so, the administration would put it in consent. The board can review it just like you would a consent item and vote on it. If you thought that a district did not do that, you could pull that item for discussion. We'd vote on the rest of consent, return to discuss that particular item, and then the board can choose to vote or
So
not.
from an efficiency standpoint, it'd be great that we've already had this discussion. And in
Yes.
case we only pull out the ones we don't think we need.
Yeah.
Or we need to right now.
Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? The next item on our agenda is 6.3, intergovernmental agreement to provide library services to students residing in unincorporated areas in Glenview with the Glenview Public Library.
I'll take this one. It's a real easy one. It's exciting. We have many students that already benefit from intergovernmental agreements with the village of, the public libraries of Glenview and Northbrook. What that means is we help facilitate the distribution of library cards to students who don't have them. The board has had these intergovernmental agreements. The one for Glenview is a little younger, just 1 or 2 years old. Village of, or the public library of Northbrook is 10 plus years old. What we identified, though, is that we have some students that live often in what's referred to as the triangle. It's some unincorporated areas where they have Village of Glenview addresses, but they technically are part of the Niles and Main Township Library. The Village of Glenview, the Library of Glenview has recognized this, worked with Niles Main Library, and they are okay with Glenview servicing them. So in order to facilitate that process, we just need a second intergovernmental agreement. There is no cost to this agreement. The only thing that the library asks us for, which already exists in our current agreement, is that we'll help support promoting their programs. And just like any community partner, if they need space in our facilities, they'd have the ability to request space. And we in turn, actually in this agreement, get access to their space. So kind of an added bonus there. Happy to answer any questions. This would be coming back to the board for approval on consent at the next meeting.
Ms. Hope? Mr. Shine? Dr. Steinberg? Mr. Downing?
No.
Mr. Glowacki? Well, I have a lot of
You
problems
have
with
a
this.
question.
I think the library is great. I think more people can get into the library. Fantastic. This sounds terrific. So this would come back then on consent?
Mhm.
All right, excellent. And then our next item, 6.4, a one-year implementation update of procedures for student use of electronic devices.
If you remember last year, we had the opportunity to present a request that came directly from our teachers in our classrooms, which was to address the reality that some of our students demonstrate off-task behavior through the use of their mobile devices. and maybe others, adults, every so often. Since that time, many of you are likely aware that the Illinois General Assembly has considered a requirement that has been presented by Governor Pritzker and some representatives that all schools need to have protocols in place, policies in place to address the use of personal electronic devices like cell phones during the school day. That hasn't fully passed through the legislature at this point, but there is a strong inkling that it will be forthcoming in the upcoming veto session. But what we definitely have seen around this area, separate from General Assembly action, is so many districts traveling down this path. And I think there is something, for lack of better terms, really awesome that's happened. And that is that other districts have seen what we have done, what we've developed from creating an extensive FAQ for parents, a different FAQ for students, teachers, and administrators. They've seen these things, they've asked for them, and to be candid, they've copied them and utilized them for what works best for their school district. We have been in implementation mode for the last year, and we've learned several different things. One of the elements that we made a commitment to our students, to our parents, and to this board was that when we make changes like this, we don't want to make them and then not talk about them again. But that we would review and monitor implementation, and ultimately, if needed, we would recommend incremental changes to our procedures. So this evening, we're excited. Dr. Cummings is going to go through and share with you the data that's been included in the memo. And just want to really highlight before I turn it over to Dr. Cummings, that the concept of making sure that students have what they need to be successful, that includes the environment and the tools and resources they need, is directly aligned to our strategic plan. So Focus Area 3B specifies that dedicated time with support systems will be created that foster the education of the whole student. And so when we talk about policies or procedures, such as keeping students on task, it's not just something we do as per se a one-off because there's a trend in this direction. It all comes back to our larger scope of responsibilities and goals to make sure that students are being successful in the classroom. And to that end, Dr. Cummings, can you walk us through where the data is and the recommendations?
Happy to. We also have a committee member in the audience, Jill Zerling. So one of the things you'll notice when looking at the student data is that we did not have very many repeat offenders. Typically, once they offended, the email was sent home. Sometimes they were called down to the dean's office, depending on which violation it was. And we were not seeing repeat offenders from that. I was very fortunate to facilitate a committee of teachers and administrators and students from each of the buildings that came together to review the data, not only the data that we could look at through PowerSchool in terms of the violations, but also some anecdotal data and feedback from a survey that we had sent out to our staff members. Very few tweaks were recommended through those meetings. Some minor changes to the email that we automatically send out after the first violation. But two of the recommendations that we have, the first one would be reinforcing the expectation that students use the Chromebook as their device. I think what we quickly saw is students did not have a problem turning over their phone to the caddy. Mostly because if they brought their own personal device, whether it was an iPad, a MacBook, they were still able to access their phone sitting at their desk. So they could look at their texts, they could pretty much navigate anything that was on that device in the pouch. So not a lot of resistance to that. We have always said that students should use the Chromebook, but over time, students have brought their own personal devices. And our expectation would be that students use the Chromebook for instructional purposes in the classroom, unless it was a certain class that they needed to use a different device for. That's the first one. And then the second one is regarding some of the social media platforms. Interestingly enough, again, students necessarily didn't have an issue turning over their phone because they were able to access the social media, not only from their Chromebook, but any other devices as well. I took a look at the Lightspeed data that we have, which is the internet usage, and categorizes the usage. And that data indicated that our social media usage for students doubled from the 23-24 school year to the 24-25 school year. So one of the things that we are recommending is that the top 3 social media, which is TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram, that we would block those from the student devices. They could still access that on their phone when they weren't in an instructional setting, if they were indeed on their phone network and not our school network. Questions?
There's the third one.
Oh, the third one. The third recommendation that I talked about in there was just some simple revisions to the email that is an automatic email sent out from the district office.
Mr. Glowacki, did you have any? Mr. Glowacki, did you have any questions, comments? Mr. Down?
Just a quick comment. I think it's great. I think that social media is a great thing, but it's to, high school students, it can be, to a lot of them, it's not great. So I think it's great. He's great a lot.
It's great.
Dr. Steinberg?
Great.
I think these are great. I just have questions, one for you and I think one for Dr. Gravel. How was this on the old days? Meaning, I don't know if there's a policy or something. If you are teaching and 2 students are chatting, unrelated to class, or they're playing cards, let's forget about technology, because there were other distractions in the past.
Sure.
How did we act on that? What was our, did we have policies, or we just simply said, hey, sorry, no cards in the classroom? Or because I'm a little bit, and we say no more TikTok, and then TikTok goes away in 2 years and it becomes white cloud or something else, and then something else, or like what just happened, they leave the phone, but the phone, they do Bluetooth with something else. So it's like a catch. Once you catch them, it's 2 more months until somebody goes to ChatGPT and figures out how to break the policy and comes back. So is there anything else that we can empower the teachers in the classroom to act without having, and I'm not afraid of having multiple policies, but not to have to always go around the policy and the policy and the policy, where simply it's like you're sitting in the classroom to be taught something and to contribute as one of the members of the classroom. Everything else is for after the time or once you are walking on the hall. So can we find a secondary solution? I'm not going to say alternative, but a secondary solution that will empower whoever is running the classroom, teacher, to implement these distractions out of the classroom.
Certainly. So let's take an opportunity to explore that in a few different ways. To your point, before there were so many devices on students' desks or in pockets or what have you, there would be tons of different distractions. Let's take the easy one, students passing notes to each other. And the way you would address that from a classroom management approach is you would identify it's happening, you would confiscate the note, and you would proceed down that informal conversation, just like we have now. And then if it becomes excessive, you would involve the deans at the high school level.
So the teachers were empowered.
Teachers were
And
empowered.
still empowered to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
The challenge you run into with devices is twofold. First, while the district implemented, and Mr. Breitag, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 2013? In 2013, when the district implemented a one-to-one initiative, meaning every student had a device, we did so, and we required all students or all families to pay for that device and to have it. But we have never consistently required students to use that device in the classroom. And there were curricular reasons why that was a challenge. The majority of which are no longer applicable now that we're in 2025. If we were at that stage and we compare ourselves to other districts, one of the classroom management needs that would have been identified, and to my understanding, it was discussed at Glenbrook, is that it's one thing to see students passing physical notes. It's another thing to see what's happening on 25 to 30 screens in your classroom. There are plenty of technology tools that teachers utilize in order to keep students on task. I'll give you two very easy examples. If you have software and you need all students to actively read an article, you can push that out to them. You can lock their devices in. They're focused on that. Similarly, you mentioned ChatGPT. If you are giving a student an assessment, instead of using the traditional Grademaster or the Scantron sheets or a physical one, you can lock their Chromebooks into a testing mode, and that way they can't get out of that, which is really actually efficient and easy to do on a Chromebook compared to so many other devices. But the other thing that you can do with that software is the teacher can continue to do what they do best. They can actively engage with students, walk around the room, things of that nature. But when you have questions of if students are on task, off task, as opposed to getting very close to them and in their personal space and trying to see exactly what's happening, of which minimization of screens happen and things of that nature, software allows you to actually see all those screens for the students that are in your class at that point in time. And you can address that off-task behavior very easily because you can see it just like you could the note being passed. The next step, besides making sure that we're using that device that we can have control over, which is why we chose the Chromebook many, many years ago, is to identify what is the piece of management software that would help us. One of the great parts of the Glenbrooks is that our teachers, they have colleagues, they have family members who are teachers in other districts, and there are many tools that are out there. So starting in the fall, we'll be actually learning more about those tools, likely to make or do a pilot test of what that would look like in select classrooms in the spring. But that would allow us to address that. And you got two questions.
I'm retired. I give my space to the other board.
No worries.
Mr. Schein?
I think that this is a great example of collaborative teaming, working towards a solution where a need was clearly recognized. And I think the community was ready for it. We can see that in the feedback. We're not seeing the pushback from the students. I actually didn't think we would. It was the workarounds, which if I had to think ahead, they would be doing some of the things you alluded to, Laura. So, is there a next step of tightening this further? I think less is better. I guess I would disagree with my friend, Mr. Downing. I don't think social media is good at this age group. I think it leads to all kinds of mental health challenges that it would be very nice. And it'd be very nice if those, we weren't augmenting those challenges with social media. But I'd like to hear what might be reasonable next steps. Thank you.
Yeah, so our plan is to continue to meet next school year, the committee with the students and teachers and administrators, meeting at least twice, once each semester. I think it'll be interesting to look at our data after implementing these two recommendations. And so we'll definitely come back together to review that and to determine if we need to make any other tweaks to the plan, to the FAQ. Definitely going to make a push at the beginning of the school year through communication, through the syllabus that teachers have to indicate the expectation for the one-to-one device.
Were any of the feeder middle schools implement a program like this last year so that rising freshmen have seen this?
I'm not aware of that.
Well, it's my understanding that none of the feeder districts allow the kids to carry cell phones.
And the field was locked up a few years ago.
There is an Apple Watch problem, just, yeah, one of the pieces of feedback that we heard. So I remember I thought one of the elementary school districts had started to make some proactive efforts. Before we started allowing students to carry things with them, the law does state that they are able to have a phone in the building for a variety of different purposes. So it's the off and away concept. The way we heard from our students this year is that, and we actually heard this from teachers too, recognizing workarounds, is they just wear smartwatches at the younger grade levels, which enables them to have a level of interaction and connection without having to have a phone.
Why do you qualify that at the middle school? Aren't the high school kids doing the same thing?
Yes, but even though middle schools aren't carrying their phones with them because that's their rule, they are having smartwatches, so they still have connection and distraction happening.
Why wouldn't that be the case for our students?
It is a case for our students so one of the things as we went down the path was, okay, we're going to make students place cell phones in the caddy. Should we also make them place their smartwatches in the caddy as well? And you could just keep on going with all of the different devices. We viewed at the high school level, the specific types of apps that our students are using. We are a heavy Snapchat district. The experience on the smartwatch is not going to be very helpful or engaging. Therefore, yes, there could be students doing it, but the impact on the learning environment would be much more minimal compared to actually having a full functioning device.
In order for that to work, does their phone have to be on? Is it getting data from the phone? or does it
No, because
depend
you
if
can have a cellular
You have to have a
cellular
data
watch.
plan on the watch.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the reasons, just kind of exploring this from a technical standpoint, one of the real important reasons why the Chromebook is such a great device for this type of a situation is we can absolutely administratively lock down the network they can connect to. If you have a bring your own device environment, I take this laptop and I go anywhere. Okay, if I can't get to my app using the internal network, no problem. I'll connect to my cell phone that's sitting in the caddy and take care of that. You can't do that with the Chromebook. So we're trying to address all of those things, but make no mistake, there will be new workarounds and we'll learn them as they come.
Ms. Hope?
I was just gonna ask if you guys are meeting 2 more times over the school year, if there are, can we pull the data on, okay, we've blocked these things, what are people accessing or what new workarounds have come, and maybe update more than once a year if we need to block more things or, okay.
I'm gonna like and subscribe to that.
The new terms appreciate, don't forget, appreciate.
I have 2 questions, or actually possibly 2 questions and a comment. The first is on the memo that shows the staff responses to the survey. I mean, I got the gist of it, but I don't think that it describes what 1, 2, 3, and 4 are. Each of the table, or I'm sorry, each of the columns. But my sense, my contextual sense is it was very popular, that the feedback was good, but I'm not exactly sure what those things stand for. So maybe just to make the record clear, we should update that and upload.
With device violation 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, just a little bit of cleanup on the memo. And then 2 questions. So we're gonna say that students should not be using devices other than their Chromebook. So they bring in their MacBook or their iPad or whatever. Would that be like a passing the note situation where we'd be confiscated and I'm just concerned because there's some expensive hardware. And if we are collecting bunches of these every day,
Yeah, so even when a student has a cell phone violation, our general protocol, what is called a rule, is staff members other than administrators do not confiscate any items. So if there was an actual issue in the classroom, the teacher would likely call the dean's office, and one of our security assistants or a dean would come on down to assist, or in some cases the SRO, depending on how busy the time is. In the event that a student has their own device, to be candid, our students are generally very compliant. But in this situation, we will guide the staff to fill out a referral. And if it's not at that class period, it will be a follow-up. In the absolute worst case, technically, we will capture the IP address that they're connected to, determine the MAC address, and then we'll block the device from the network. So that's another option.
Okay, technology.
We specifically want.
You're blocked, Mr. Downing. Last question, only because this was raised by a number of parents to me when we developed this policy and implemented it, and I'm not aware of there being any issues, but I'd be interested in knowing what your view is on this. There were some concerns expressed of like, what if my child does not have access to their phone during an emergency? And we've had a few of those things happen, and as far as I know, now I haven't gotten much more on that. That has not been an issue, but can you address that just to allay the fears that some people might have on that?
Yeah.
Front?
So this, I guess technically this afternoon, we had an opportunity to review our emergency operations plan with representatives from the Village of Glenview and the Village of Northbrook Police Departments and fire departments. And this exact question came up. And what we were seeking was our current processes that in the event of an emergency, let's, for lack of a better term, say the fire alarm goes off. Our current practice is that the teacher has the ability to make a decision, and it's a bit of a gut decision or just-in-time decision to determine if students need to bypass the phone caddy and get out of the building, or if in an orderly fashion they can grab their phone out of the phone caddy. We asked public safety what their thoughts were in that process, and they, and correct me, Laura, Barb or Mandy if I'm wrong, they said that is exactly what they would recommend. In fact, they used the example to say, if you were to ask us if a home was on fire or having a situation, well, we would tell you, we would say, I believe they defined it as, make sure your children, followed by your pets in that order, are out. And don't worry about anything else. But recognizing, they said, you'll know if there's a situation going on, especially with respect to fire, if it's directly in that area of the building or if it's not. And so that judgment is very reasonable, and there was no concerns there. We have had evacuations and we have not had any issues. And not to say we have data on this, but it seemed like most students had their devices and there was no problem.
Okay, that's helpful.
Follow-up question.
I'm
to
sorry,
something-
Mr.
Yeah,
Glowacki.
sorry. Follow-up question to something that Ms. Mullenbeck raised about the personal devices that people bring, because the arts, engineering classes, they do actually, some of the teachers do encourage their own devices because they were using more horsepower than a Chromebook.
Yes.
and For design work and things of that nature. How do we resolve conflicts where the student, they don't want to carry two devices to school, so they're using their MacBook because of the class, but then they're going to foreign language and, now we're trying to shut them down and everything. How
So
do they
I'll-
coordinate so that the student's not in any dire straits for not using the Chromebook we're trying to promote?
So let's offer a few options. It's always good to have options. The first option, very much not popular with my child and many children, is that we provide lockers to any student that would like them, and that is a great opportunity to not carry everything with them. Acknowledging that that will not be a viable option, we'll go to option 2. In any class that requires a higher horsepower device, the school district is providing those devices. So they don't have to carry two devices. They can use a school-provided device, especially in our Project Lead the Way, music theory, graphic and visual art classes, all of that's provided. If that doesn't work, the natural then question comes, well, yes, but I want to work on my projects at home and therefore I need my device, or maybe I'm on an extracurricular activity and it's just best if I keep using that device. In that situation, it goes down to the same concept of some of our students choose, even though we have digital textbooks, they choose to carry print textbooks. And so that's a choice. Again, the lockers are available for storage. Many of our classrooms, especially that are designed that way, students do have the ability to leave certain devices like that in the classroom, but they can work with their teacher and or utilize other
Yeah, I mean, it
storage
hasn't been
areas.
an issue for the most part. So you have kids coming in with their MacBook Pros that they're providing,
Mhm.
but using, since everything's cloud-based in those other courses, not an issue. I was just,
Yep.
I saw a conflict here based on your response of what are we trying to now send? Are we going to create issues where we don't have issues?
Yeah, we were talking with Mr. Breitag about the different curriculum that actually requires specialized devices. And again, compared to 2013 and where we are in 2025, the number of classes substantially decreased. Back in the day, we also had a higher number of students who would bring their personal devices because they just wanted that flexibility, and it helped us out too because we didn't always have enough devices. But now, even with our higher horsepower applications, many of them are cloud-based. They just require a different
There's just a
device
few
to
that
run.
I've noticed with some in the community that are still using it. I
Yep.
was surprised, but no waves
They still
currently. Are we creating waves?
Yeah, being one of the individuals who's taken the phone calls each year about why do I need to have a Chromebook when I prefer to use my own device, it's about a handful, and I would anticipate just about the same. And in that situation, I want to be real clear. While we will ask our teachers to make sure to certainly enforce the rules that you have to have a Chromebook, if parents have concerns of that nature, they'll be reaching out directly to our associate principals or to Mr. Breitag. I was going to say myself, but technically it's Mr. Breitag now.
Okay, Dr.
Thank you.
Steinberg.
A little bit different, but I'm thinking we're seeing surveys from teachers and following what you just said, the students are kind of voting with their feet because there are not too many repeat offenders. So there's a significant number, but once and that's it. I wonder if we can leverage our surveys that we do in terms of sense of belonging and how you are at school, educating by example in terms of putting more questions in terms of how do you feel now that you have more time to dedicate into the class or you don't get as many interruptions, kind of getting into it. There's a value for doing this, and it's not just that we are trying to take something away for the sake of taking something away. May take a year, may take two, but as people get, I know it sounds crazy even saying it, but nobody will take a phone call in a class. Well, although maybe somebody does it. I know. But even the thought of doing it, it sounds kind of odd, right? Because even some people go to dinner or lunch and they put their phone down because it's an etiquette. But these are teenagers, so we need to educate them into that part. And it may take time until it gets used to. You're talking to a friend. You're not going to be watching your phone all the time because your friend will consider it rude. So maybe there's some solution through that way, to belonging, to building community, being part of something larger.
Yeah, one of the beautiful things about what Panorama does for us is they keep an eye on trends that are emerging and how they may or may not connect to this idea of social emotional learning. So they have direct questions regarding cell phones and the impact on that, social media, as we were talking about, and of course, AI readiness and student experiences. So those are definitely opportunities for us to explore with our team. And as a matter of fact, we've been talking about going into year 4, what do we want to dive a little bit more deeply in, and what do we feel comfortable that maybe we can streamline now? So good timing for that.
Yeah, and I think that as I'm thinking, as a parent of former students, right? Your kid does something, we tell you, goes home and says, everybody does it, right? But if as a parent, I know that only 365 over 5,000, my answer is not everybody does it. In fact, the majority of people don't do it. They comply with what they're supposed to be doing. So putting that information out, kind of creating a model of this thing is working.
Any other comments? Okay. That takes us then to 6.5, the 2025-26 Parent and Student Handbook.
So each year, the administration compiles a collection of handbook updates. The handbook updates really align with policy changes that have been made over the years. This year, we did make a mid-year update already to the handbook regarding student apparel and appearance. So that's already been included. But we also receive a variety of updates from the Model Student Handbook subscription service that we have with the Illinois Principals Association. Those again reference updated laws, things of that nature, and those have been incorporated. As you scroll through, you'll see common updates such as personnel changes, name changes, things of that nature. We've also tried to move around some different sections because, again, being very candid, the handbook was laid out for some sections in a confusing manner. So we just rearranged some things and then updated current practice. More than happy to talk about anything. We started presenting the handbook to the board for review just last year was the first year it came forward. And it's just an annual process we go through. The handbook is then made available to all parents and signed off on by all students each fall.
Oh, that's fine.
Typo. Yeah, I like seeing my name, I don't like it seeing it twice. I'm listed twice on page 2.
Double Marcelo.
Yeah.
We will correct
Yes,
that.
and my twin.
No worries.
Were there any items, Dr. Gravel, that you wanted to call out, or this is for discussion and then we'll come back on consent? Is that right?
Correct. Just from a process standpoint, I chair the committee that reviews the parent and student handbook updates. Members of that committee include Dr. Georges, Mrs. Hughes, our associate principals of student support, or our assistant principals of deans. Dr. Cummings has been on that committee and a variety of other staff members. So this is not, just as a reminder, this is not policy. This is really operational procedure.
Ms. Hope? Okay. Mr. Shine? Anything else, Marcelo? Mr. Downing
Nothing.
and Mr. Glowacki? Well, you guys did a bang up job, committee.
We added 30 more pages.
Yeah. So this is just, we understand, and we have a policy, so this is making it consistent with policy changes and also consistent with actual practice. Okay. If
Right.
no
This
one
will be
has-
brought forth back on consent agenda at the next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
that brings us then to item 7, which is our review and summary of the board meeting. Had some great reports about graduations. No one mentioned how fast they were. That was great. They were so efficient this year, right? But they were fantastic, so much fun. Efficient. Everyone just wanted to go and celebrate, so that was great. We got everyone to their parties. Some great end of the year celebrations of retiring staff. End of the year achievements downstate for some of our athletes. No community visitors this time, but maybe next time. And then a whole lot of discussion about True North, some updates on our cell phone policy, and a review of changes to the parent and student handbook. Want to, as always, ask any board member who would like to raise any possible topics for future board meetings. You can raise them now, or you can send them an email, send us an email, or me an email, or give me a call, and we'll get those put on the agenda. Yes, Dr. Gravel.
Just had one note. We had a very awesome finance committee today, and we needed some more time to have our conversation. So for anyone who is interested in continuing our discussion of financial reporting, structures of budgets and things of that nature, we'll gather again at 6 o'clock. My gosh, June 23rd, if I recall correct. So just in the PD room, anyone is welcome to join. And thank you so much for the great and awesome conversation.
Excellent. All right. And And we will, I think, have closed session tonight. We will hold closed session to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. And collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, and those are sections 2C1 and 2 of the Open Meeting Act. Could I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, let's take till 8:25, 7 minutes. Is that enough? Okay. Okay, see you then.
And we are back in open at 8:40 PM.
Okay, coming out of closed, we have a potential motion.
I move to approve the resignation agreement for Miss Sarah Daulatashi as discussed in closed session.
Second?
Mr. Glowacki,
Yes.
Mrs. Hope,
Yes.
Mr. Schein,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg,
Yes.
Mr. Downing,
Yes.
and Ms. Mullenbeck.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And with that, I think we've reached the time for someone to move to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.